Let's look at some creative ways to use the logo panel in Articulate Presenter. The logo panel appears in the upper left corner of the presentation at the top of the sidebar, and it accepts standard image formats like JPEG, bitmap, PNG, and so forth, but it can also accept SWF files or SWIFT files. And SWIFT files can provide far more than just static images. So in this screencast, we want to look at several examples of how you might use SWIFT files in the logo panel to introduce additional functionality into your presentation. And then in the following screencasts, we'll look at each of these techniques individually. Now, there are certainly far more ways that you can use SWIFT files to add additional functionality to your presentation than we're going to be able to cover in this series. And if you happen to have Flash development skills or know someone who does, then really the sky's the limit for you as to how much functionality you can include in your SWIFT files. But for the most part, the examples that we're going to cover in this series require no knowledge of Flash whatsoever, so anyone can use these techniques. And before we look at our examples, I do want to point out the difference between the logo panel and the presenter panel, both of which can accept SWF files, and they both appear in the sidebar of your presentation. The main difference is that SWIFT files in the presenter panel will only display on one slide. However, a SWIFT file in the logo panel will display throughout the entire presentation. So with that in mind, let's look at our examples. And these examples are going to fall into four main categories that we're going to look at afterwards. Now, the first category is we're going to use a screen capture tool called Snagit to add hyperlinks to our logos, as in this example here. When we click the link, it takes us to an external website. So you might link to your company's website or something like that. And this is standard operating procedure for websites these days. If you click on the logo for a website, it's going to take you to the home page or to a specific landing page. So why not use that same functionality in your presentation? Similarly, we'll look at how to add multiple hyperlinks to the same SWIFT file. So in this case, we've got 4 different hyperlinks on the same SWIFT, and they'll all go to different websites. So in this case, it's the forums website, eLearning Heroes. And then the next product we'll look at is a free tool that was created by an Articulate user in the community that allows you to create Flash buttons, and you don't have to know anything about Flash, so it's really great. And it allows you to have up states, hover states, and down states when you click, and you can still launch external websites. Another great thing about this tool is that it allows you to link not only to external websites, but also to slides within your presentation. So if I click on section 3 here, notice it takes me to slide 10 in the presentation, and so forth. Now this is useful because maybe you would rather have navigation that's available throughout your presentation for the main sections of your presentation, but maybe you want to have the notes panel display as the default panel in the sidebar, and maybe you would use this for a transcript or additional information. So this is a useful way to do that. You could also use it maybe if you wanted to create a custom header for the presenters in your presentation. So let's say this presentation has 3 different presenters, and we want to link to either a slide in the presentation that gives more information and contact information, or maybe an external website for each of these individuals. Then the third thing we're going to look at is adding a SWIFT movie to a presentation, as in this example, which is just cycling through several images over and over and over. And this is going to continue throughout the presentation, no matter which slide we happen to be on. And then finally, we'll look at adding an interactive SWIFT file to your logo panel that will be visible throughout the presentation. So in this case, we're using a calculator, and you might use this for a math course or a science course where the user just needs access to a calculator. And it doesn't have to be a calculator, it can be anything, but this is the one example where you will need Flash development skills. So now let's look at each of these techniques individually.